Imagine paying dues every single month, just to be told you can't fly the same flag your dad saluted on your own porch. What would you do if the person knocking your door at dawn wasn't a neighbor bringing coffee, but the HOA president with a tape measure and a smile that felt like a ticket? My name's Evan McCoy. I moved into Maple Glen because the brochure promised quiet streets, big oaks, and neighbors who wave with the whole hand. After the divorce, I needed someplace steady. I found a little ranch house with a porch swing that sings in the wind, and a backyard that smells like cut grass and fried bacon on Saturday mornings. I swear, the house sounded like a sigh when I signed the papers, like it was missing me and didn't know till I walked in. Enter Karen. Karen runs Maple Glen like it's a tiny kingdom, and she's the queen with a golden clipboard. Late 40s. Blonde bob so sharp it could slice bread. And that voice, sweet as lemonade until she hits a rule. Then it turns to vinegar. She drives a spotless SUV with the HOA logo magnet on the door and a vanity plate that reads, well, something cutesy that I won't say. First time she showed up at my place, it was a Sunday morning, barely past sunrise. She didn't knock so much as tap, 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 like a woodpecker that had a deadline. Good morning, Mr. McCoy, she said. Friendly courtesy check. She handed me a form that looked like a test I hadn't studied for. Violations, circled in hot pink mailbox, non-compliant. Porch light, not warm white. Grass, a half-inch over regulation. Flag bracket, at the wrong angle. Who knew a flag had an angle? And my favorite, unofficial yard ornament, referring to the little ceramic tortoise my daughter gave me. It's named Peanut. I said, pets are fine. Karen said, smiling, ornaments are discouraged. Peanut's not an ornament. He's family. I tried to laugh. She didn't. That was the first note. More followed, drifting in like snow. A letter about my truck in the driveway overnight. Apparently pickups are commercial looking. A warning that my wind chimes might disturb the peace. A threat about my garbage can being visible from the street for, I kid you not, the length of one sitcom. The fines were small at first. $30 here, $50 there. It felt petty, like being charged a nickel every time you breathe. I was going to ignore it, then she went after my neighbor, Mr. Alvarez, a widower who grows tomatoes, like he's whispering to them in Spanish secret. Non-conforming trellis, Karen said, and slapped him with a fee that made his hand shake. That's when it got personal. I started keeping a notebook. Dates, times, photos. I saved every email, printed them, slid them into a folder labeled, because apparently we need this. My daughter, Lauren, laughed at the title, then got quiet when she saw Mr. Alvarez staring at his garden like it was a dog he might have to give away. You should talk to the board, she said. Or, like, run for it. Run for HOA, I said. Sweetheart, I'd rather run into traffic. But I went to the next meeting. I figured, show up. Listen. Speak like a civilized adult. The board sat at a long table in the clubhouse, under fluorescent lights that made everyone look like they hadn't slept. Karen, in the center. On her right, Todd, a guy who wore polo shirts like a uniform and kept nodding before anyone finished speaking. On her left, Marla, who shuffled papers and didn't meet anyone's eyes. There were snacks on a folding table, store-bought cookies, lukewarm coffee, and a printout of the agenda with more sections than a church service. We did the pledge. And Karen smiled this small, tight smile. Public comment, she said. I stood. The fines have gotten, a little out of hand. I said. Mr. Alvarez's trellis has been there for years. My tortoise is, you know, a tortoise. And the flag, come on. My dad served 2 tours. He taught me to fold that flag like it's a prayer. Karen tilted her head. I appreciate your passion, she said. Like I'd brought up a new salsa recipe. However, consistency protects property values. Todd nodded. Property values, he said. As if that were the end of the conversation. I looked around. There's people who wanted to clap. I could tell. But nobody did. Fear isn't always a scream. Sometimes it's a silence. I sat down. Cheeks hot. When I got home, there was a yellow slip tucked under my doormat. Unapproved porch swing cushion color. I didn't even know cushions could be unapproved. Apparently, the palette is earth tones. Not cheerful blue. Which is what the tag said when I bought it. The next morning at, no kidding, dawn, Karen showed up with a tape measure. Your grass, she said, is a 1/4 inch tall. Above or below, I asked. She didn't smile. Above. I stared at the lawn like it had betrayed me. So trim it a 1/4 inch by end of day, she said. Already writing. End of day. I repeated. Right. Something hard settled under my ribs. I emailed the board. The management company. Even the generic HOA mailbox, nobody checks. I asked for the bylaws and the architectural guidelines as a PDF. Absolutely, Karen replied, adding a winking emoji. Which, sorry, should be illegal in official correspondence. The files came. I printed them. Hundreds of pages. Rules about fence heights and holiday decor, and allowed bird feeders. Which must be simple and not whimsical. No mention of a ban on peanut. But pages on aesthetic uniformity that could be bent to mean whatever Karen wanted. That week was a parade of petty. My garbage can was an inch too far forward. My porch light. Not warm enough. A chalk drawing my niece made on the sidewalk, flowers, and a smiling sun was unauthorized street artwork. Karen took photos like she was filming a nature documentary. Observe the wild chalk in its habitat. I muttered. She didn't laugh. Lauren, watching from the couch, put her phone down. Dad, she said. This ain't normal. I know. The tipping point came on a Wednesday night. Storm clouds like bruises rolled in, and the wind made the chimes sing a sad little song. I was washing dishes when I heard a knock. Then a voice, Karen's, calling my name through the screen door like we were old friends. Just a minute, I said, drying my hands. I opened the door and found her already inside the porch. Clipboard braced like a shield. We received a complaint, she said. Your truck was parked in the driveway overnight. It was raining, I said. I got home late. I was gonna move it in the morning. Maple Glen is not a storage facility, for she looked down at her paper commercial-looking vehicles. It's a pickup, I said. It's my pickup. I teach shop at the high school. I carry lumber and toolboxes. You know life. Rules are rules, she said. Whose rules? I asked. Steadier than I felt. She blinked. Slow. Like a lizard. Ours. I stepped onto the porch. The rain smelled like pennies. Karen, I said. Do you remember Mr. Alvarez's wife? She planted those marigolds by hand. He talks to them when he waters. Like she can hear him. You're gonna fine him for that. For talking to flowers, Karen's mouth twitched. Sentiment doesn't supersede aesthetics. The wind gusted. Her papers flapped. Something inside me call it pride. Call it stubborn, snapped. Okay, I said. Then, aesthetics doesn't supersede decency. I closed the door. She left a fine. I left the truck where it was. By Friday, I had a stack of pastel slips that looked like a deck of petty primus. Mr. Alvarez got another one. So did Marlene, the nurse on the corner, for having a wreath that was too seasonal in an off-season. Meanwhile, the clubhouse roof leaked. The pool pump rattled. And the playground slide had a crack that pinched little legs. Funny how the rules were strict where it was easy and woolly where it cost money. So I asked for financials. Annual budget. Reserve studies. Invoices, basic stuff. I wrote. Karen's reply was instant and chilly. Financial records are available upon proper request and scheduling. Please submit a date. Monday. I said. Next month. She said. Wednesday. I countered. She didn't reply. You know when you realize a bully isn't just mean, they're organized. That's what this was. I started knocking on doors. Mr. Alvarez let me in and showed me a shoebox of fines. I pay because I don't want trouble, he said. But there is always more trouble. Marlene brewed coffee and rolled her eyes till I thought they might get stuck. They warned me about my Halloween skeleton, she said. In November, he had a scarf on. He looked cute. I made a list of names. Stories piled up like firewood. A single mom who got fined for a kiddie pool. A veteran told his flag was too large by aesthetics. A teacher cited because her planters were not architecturally harmonious. People laughed, telling it. The way you laugh when the alternative is punching a wall. I sat at my kitchen table with all of it, and thought, there has to be a way. I read the bylaws again. There's always a lever. I found little things, notice requirements. Quorum rules. Recall procedures that read like they were written by someone who assumed no one would ever use them. If a third of the owners signed a petition, we could call a special meeting. If a majority of those attending said yes, we could recall the board. We'd have to be careful. Karen would look for a way to toss signatures. Or to say the meeting wasn't properly noticed. Or that our petition was on the wrong color paper. But it was there. Black and white. That Sunday, I hosted a potluck. Not an official meeting, just neighbors. Plates. And stories. I smoked ribs. Marlene brought deviled eggs that disappeared like magic. Mr. Alvarez brought tomatoes and salt and a memory that made my throat tight. Even Todd showed up without Karen, which surprised me. He ate 2 plates and stood on the edge of the yard like a man watching a ship leave shore. You doing okay? I asked. He swallowed. Karen's thorough, he said. She cares about the community. Does she? I said. Mild as I could manage. He shrugged. She says if we loosen the rules, property values will plummet. Property values, I echoed. Meanwhile, the playground, slide bites, kids. He didn't answer. There's a quiet kind of shame you can't name. It sits in the eyes and roosts. We took out the petition when dessert hit the table. I explained the recall process in plain speech. No gotchas. No hidden clauses. It's simple, I said. If you're happy, you don't sign. If you're not, you sign. Then we follow the rules better than they do. One by one, people stepped up. Pens scratched. Names grew. When it was over, my dining table looked like a quilt of signatures. I counted. Sorry, no counting. I tallied in my head and stopped. We got enough, I said. Maybe more than enough. Lauren squeezed my arm. Dad, she whispered. I'm proud of you. That night, I slept like a man who'd finally found the lever. The next morning, at what I swear was the crack of dawn, Karen showed up again. I'd expected that. What I didn't expect was the tow truck idling at the curb. Good morning, Mr. McCoy, Karen said, as if we were sharing muffins. We're removing the non-compliant vehicle. I stepped out in my socks. The grass was cool, and the sky was pink at the edges. That's my truck, I said. And there's no towing without notice. She held up a paper. Notice was given. I read it. It was dated yesterday. Time-stamped at nearly midnight. Posted to my door sometime between then and now. You call this notice, I asked. You stick it on the door when people are asleep. We can't be responsible for your sleep schedule, she said, and smiled. The tow guy looked miserable, like a man who knew his mother raised him better. Sir, he said to me. Soft. I gotta do what the contract says. I took a breath. Buddy. I don't blame you, I said. But this is not happening. I stepped in front of the truck. Karen's eyebrows jumped. Mr. McCoy, she said. You're obstructing. Yep, I said. And filming. I held up my phone. She laughed. You think the internet cares about Maple Glen's vehicle policy? I think people care about bullies. Something in her flickered. She looked at the tow driver. We can come back, he said, relief washing over his face. Ma'am, we can come back. She hesitated. There was a crowd gathering Marlene in scrubs with a travel mug. Mr. Alvarez with his straw hat. A couple walking a dog that looked like a loaf of bread. Karen decided. Fine, she said. But the fines stand. Sure, I said. Put it on the pile. She flinched. A small thing. But I saw it. At 9 o'clock sharp. I walked into the management company office with the petition in a manila folder. The receptionist looked at me like she knew trouble when it wore a denim jacket. Drop off, she asked. Service, I said. As per the bylaws. She took it. Hands careful. Like it might explode. We'll be in touch. I smiled. We will. 2. By noon, the email blast went out. Notice of special meeting. Scheduled for 2 weeks hence. In the clubhouse. The subject line was bland. The text brief. But I'll be honest, my heart hammered like I'd swallowed a hummingbird. This was real now. And we had to win. Not by shouting. Not by slinging mud. By being boringly, relentlessly correct. We practiced. Don't laugh. We held a mock meeting in my living room. Lauren played Karen and did a scary good impression. Out of order, she said, stabbing the air with a ruler. Point of order. Marlene countered, reading from a printout. Mr. Alvarez, bless him, brought empanadas and nodded solemnly at every procedural phrase like a battle planner. We didn't practice to be cute. We practiced because bullies count on chaos. 2 days later, the management company sent out clarifications. Signatures had to be verified. Some people weren't in good standing. Some addresses needed correction. It was death by paper cut. Exactly as predicted. We checked every name twice. We gathered proof of payment for anyone they tried to say was behind. I delivered the binders myself. One on each hip. Like toddlers, I refused to drop. While all this churned, Karen escalated. A violation for my porch light being improperly shielded. A photo of Peanut the tortoise, circled, with the word whimsical in caps. A letter this one sent certified, warning me about hostile behavior toward a board member. Hostile, I said out loud, reading it at the mailbox. I gave you a cookie last week. Karen, passing in her SUV, slowed and lifted a hand like a queen acknowledging the peasants. I waved back with all 5 fingers. The night before the meeting, it rained. The kind of rain that washes the dust off everything and leaves the world smelling like tin and hope. I slept a little, poorly, and woke to find Lauren already dressed. "Let's go win," she said. The clubhouse was packed. Folding chairs filled the room and then some. Neighbors lined the walls, shoulder to shoulder. The air electric with something raw and bright. Karen sat at the long table, gavel in hand, the board flanking her like chess pieces. She looked composed, calm. She'd dressed for victory, not doubt. I felt my stomach drop, then steady. I dressed for a funeral once and still laughed in the parking lot. Clothes don't control the day. Karen banged the gavel. "Meeting called to order," she said. As a reminder, disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. We did the roll call. We did the approval of the last minutes, which, I swear, took years. Then the agenda item, petition to recall the board. Karen said, "We'll proceed to discussion." I stood. "Point of order," I said. "As a petitioner, I'd like to nominate an independent chair for this agenda item." She blinked. "That won't be necessary. It's allowed," I said. "And read the clause." I didn't look at her. I looked at the paper. At the words I knew like a prayer. "Given the conflict of interest," I added. "It's reasonable." Murmurs. Karen's mouth thinned. She looked to Todd. He looked at the ceiling, like the answer might be written there. Marla shuffled papers that didn't need shuffling. Karen sighed. "Very well," she said. "Who do you propose, Judge Benton?" I said. And the crowd turned to see a man in a gray suit stand from the 3rd row. Retired, kind-eyed, with a voice that condensed rooms into classrooms. He'd agreed after I'd asked him with pie and a promise I would not waste his time. "Happy to serve," he said, walking to the front. Karen slid her chair back so hard it squeaked. With the judge at the helm, the air changed. Order. Not as a weapon, but as a way through. We presented the petition. The management company confirmed the signatures. Lauren had checked them again. You could see her bite mark on the pencil. Karen's objections were crisp and, well, practiced. "These 3 are not in good standing," she said. "We produced receipts. Paid. Last week. This address is incorrect. Moved last month, updated on file. This one's illegible. Printed here," I said, offering a clearer copy. It was a dance we'd rehearsed. And it worked. When the judge called for the vote, I held my breath until my lungs hurt. Ballots were counted at the back table. 3 volunteers. Eyes down. Lips moving. The room hummed. Karen stared at me like she was trying to remember where she knew me. From a grocery line, a dream where the ground kept sliding away. The volunteers finished. The judge cleared his throat. "The motion to recall," he said, "passes." The room exhaled. It wasn't a cheer. Not yet. It was a letting go. Then the sound rose. Not gloating. Not nasty. just relief that crested and washed the walls. Karen's face didn't change. For a second, I admired her. Then I remembered Mr. Alvarez's hands shaking over a trellis. As per the bylaws, the judge continued, we'll proceed to elect an interim board. We'd prepared a slate. Not perfect people, busy people. Flawed like the rest of us, but decent. Marlene for president. Mr. Alvarez, treasurer. Because nobody watches pennies like a man who learned how to stretch them for 60 years. Ron, a contractor. For maintenance. Me, secretary, paperwork guy. The vote was fast and clean. Karen stood. This is improper, she said, voice shaking in a way I'd never heard. You don't understand the complexities of the rules, I said, and immediately wished I hadn't. She flinched like I'd swung. The judge raised a hand. Ma'am, he said gently, the community has spoken. She opened her mouth, closed it, then grabbed her tote and marched out. Head high. Like the hallway was a throne room, and she was stepping back to appraise it. Todd followed, then paused at the door. He looked back at us, shoved his hands in his pockets, and stayed. We got to work that night. We changed the locks on the office. We reset the email passwords. We called the bank and, after a long hold with a very patient teller, updated the signers. We took a flashlight to the clubhouse attic and found boxes of paperwork labeled old. When a bully says old, they mean unseen. We opened the first box and started reading. I'd love to tell you it was a movie montage, papers flipping, heads nodding, someone shouting aha while dramatic music swelled. It wasn't. It was hours of invoices and bank statements and receipts that smelled like dust and lemon cleaner. Ron spread them out on folding tables like he was dealing cards in the slowest game on earth. Marlene highlighted in calm, furious yellow. Mr. Alvarez made coffee so strong it could walk by itself. Patterns emerged. Landscaping bills that doubled in spring and never went back down. A cleaning service that charged premium rates for the clubhouse on days the clubhouse was locked. A consulting fee payable to a name that looked familiar because it was the maiden name Karen used on social media. I mean, allegedly. Sorry, Habit. We didn't accuse, we documented. We made a spreadsheet so tidy it could sing. Every dollar in, every dollar out, and a lot of dollars that looked like they'd strolled into a fog. We found emails with approvals, but no bids. Approvals without minutes. Minutes without votes. It was a mess dressed as order. Meanwhile, the violation slowed. Not because the world got looser, but because we aimed the rules at the things that mattered, the leak in the clubhouse roof, the rattling pool pump, the sidewalk crack that tripped Mrs. Jenkins last month. We hired a lifeguard for the weekend rush. We fixed the slide. We sent a letter, not a threat. A letter asking people to trim their hedges by the end of the month if they had time, and to call us if they needed help. You'd have thought we'd handed out cookies on every porch. People smiled again. You could feel the neighborhood drop its shoulders. On a Wednesday, mid-morning, Karen's SUV rolled past my house. Slow. She didn't stop. The window was up. Her jaw was set like stone that's thinking about cracking. I'm not heartless. I felt a pinch of what? Not pity. Something shaped like it. Power can be a drug. Quitting cold turkey hurts. We kept reading. And then because stories love a turn, we found the thing that changed everything. It was a subfolder in the management company's shared drive. Badly named, like it was hiding in plain sight. Ron found it while looking for pool invoices. Inside were PDF scans of maintenance reports that billed the community for jobs never done, pressure washing on a week it rained like a monsoon, window cleaning for windows that didn't exist, pest control for a clubhouse that showed no sign of having ever seen a roach. The vendor, a company registered to an address I recognized. Karen's cousin. 2 towns over. We didn't celebrate. We didn't tweet. We called a meeting with the management company and brought the judge as a witness. The manager. A man with a pastel tie and a talent for passive voice. Got paler and paler as Marlene slid pages across the table. These approvals, she said, do not match any scope. These payments, frankly, look fictitious. He cleared his throat. Mistakes were made. By whom, I asked. Silence is sometimes an answer. He resigned the next morning. We turned it all over to the county. Not because we were vindictive, but because accountability isn't revenge, it's maintenance. Like oiling a hinge so the door swings true. The county investigator listened. Flipped pages. Asked the same question 10 ways. When he left, he said, "You folks did good work." Then he said, "I'm sorry." Which meant something bad was coming for someone. Karen called me that night. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was flat. "You've ruined this community." She said, "I hope you're proud." I sat at my kitchen table, looking at Peanut, the tortoise on the porch. At the cushion that was still too cheerful. At the flag that hung at the proper angle I'd measured with a level because I'm petty. 2. Proud wasn't the word. Tired was. And also, stubborn. Bullies count on people to give up. I wasn't gonna. 2 weeks later, at dawn, the county came with clipboards that didn't belong to Karen. Plain sedans. Serious faces. They carried boxes out of the clubhouse. I watched from the curb with Mr. Alvarez and Marlene. No one cheered. You don't clap when surgery starts. You clasp hands and wait for the doctor to come back. News travels weird. By lunch, people at the coffee shop were whispering. By dinner, the neighborhood Facebook group, usually yard sale ads, and lost cats, was a battlefield. Some folks defended Karen. Said we were making a mountain out of a molehill. Some folks said the molehill was a mountain. They'd just been told not to look. I posted once. Short. Let the county do its job. I logged off. I'm not a saint, I just didn't want to drown. When the charges came, they were dull to read and deep to feel. Words like fraud and conversion and false instrument printed in courier font. Allegedly. 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 I read them at my kitchen table with Lauren across from me. Both of us quiet. She reached across. Squeezed my hand. "You did right," she said. The new board voted to pursue restitution. We did a special assessment. The smallest we could. To fix what had been ignored. People grumbled. Of course they did. Money grumbles when it leaves your wallet. But the pool felt cold and clean that first weekend. And the clubhouse roof sighed in the rain. And the playground slide quit biting kids. And the grumbles turned into jokes. Progress sounds like hammers in the morning and laughter at dusk. One evening, near sunset, I saw Karen walking her dog Tiny. Yappy. Wearing a sweater even though the air was warm. She saw me and kept going. Chin up. Something in me said, Go home. Something else, call it the voice of my mother, who used to leave casseroles on porches for family she couldn't stand, said, "Be decent." Evening. I called. She paused. "Mr. McCoy," she said, not turning. "Nice night," I said. She glanced up. The sky was pink, then gold, then that impossible blue that feels like a secret. "It is," she admitted. Her shoulders lowered a fraction. "You win," she added. Bitter. "It's not a game," I said. "It's home." She looked at me then. Really looked. Like she was trying to see the joke I was hiding. Finding none. She nodded. "Once. Enjoy your tortoise," she said, and kept walking. I smiled. "You too," I said, though I don't think she has a tortoise. We didn't post a victory banner. We organized a block party, not to celebrate anyone's fall, but to mark the neighborhood's rise. Lawn chairs, kids on scooters, Mr. Alvarez's tomatoes sliced thick with salt. Marlene brought those deviled eggs that disappear. Ron grilled brats. The high school jazz kids, my kids, played on the clubhouse patio. And the sound of trumpets bounced off stucco and oak leaves like a blessing. Midway through, a new family came by. Looking hesitant. "We, just moved in," the dad said. "We heard things. Most of them true," I said. "Some exaggerated. Want a plate?" He took it. His little boy ran toward the slide and came back, shouting, "It's fast." His mom laughed and covered her eyes like she was watching a roller coaster. The sun slid down. The lights came on warm white. I checked, and the air smelled like grilled onions and cut grass and a future that didn't flinch. Months later, on a quiet morning that tasted like coffee and hope, I sat on the porch and watched a squirrel do acrobatics like he was auditioning for a circus. Peanut, the tortoise, sat in his spot, as always, looking like wisdom sculpted from clay. The flag moved just enough to remind me of my dad, that fold, that saluted goodbye I never quite got over. The mail came. No pastel slips. Just flyers and a bill for the water and a letter in a plain envelope with no return address. I opened it. Inside was a single sheet. "Dear Mr. McCoy," it read, in tidy script. "I don't expect forgiveness. I do want to say I thought I was protecting the neighborhood. Somewhere along the way, I started protecting the rules instead of the people. That's on me. I suppose I'm writing to say, take care of the place. You were right. It's home. K." I stared at it for a long time. Then, I put it in the drawer with the flag instructions my dad kept, and the photo of Lauren missing her front teeth, and the recipe for cornbread that never fails. Not because I wanted a souvenir, because history isn't just the pretty parts. It's the whole messy story of how we decide to live together. We set new traditions at Maple Glen. We do port checks, but not the kind you think, neighbors walking and waving. Making sure Mrs. Jenkins's paper made it to her door. That Mr. Alvarez's marigolds survive a surprise cold snap. We still have rules. We mow the grass and paint the fences and keep the lights warm and quit arguing about cushions unless they're so neon they scare the birds. We put money where it should go, into roofs and pumps and slides. We post the budget for all to see. We put the meeting dates on the sign at the entrance, in letters big enough you don't need to squint. We invite the new folks to potlucks and tell them, kindly, that the chalk drawings on the sidewalk are murals we're honored to host. Sometimes I think about the night the tow truck idled at my curb and my socks got wet and my hands shook. I think about how easy it would have been to step aside, to let the truck take the truck, to pay the fine, to grumble and go quiet. There's a comfort in surrender that feels like a pillow and turns out to be a stone. I didn't step aside. Not because I'm brave, but because my daughter was watching, and so were my neighbors, and so was I. I wanted to be the man I said I was, on the porch swing when the sun was kind and the day was soft. If you're listening to this, and your own clipboard queen is measuring your grass with a smirk, hear me, you're not crazy. And you're not alone. Read the rules. Learn the levers. Knock on doors. Feed people. Practice the boring parts until you can say them in your sleep. Be decent. Even when it's easier to be clever. And when the day comes and the vote is counted, and the air leaves the room and comes back in the shape of relief, remember, you didn't win. You just fixed the hinge so the door opens for everyone. The sun slid higher. A breeze ran through the oaks. And the chimes gave a single gentle note, like a yes. I set my coffee down, shook out the paper, and laughed at the yard sale ad for a lamp gently haunted, but negotiable. Peanut didn't move. The flag did. The street, for a long, lovely moment, was nothing but blue sky, warm light, and a neighborhood that remembered how to be one. What would you do here? Anyone else had a HOA do this to you? Tell me down in the comments, 'cause your story, honestly, might be the reason someone finally stands up and says, enough.